So thanks, Crystal, for joining me once again with All for Synchronicity. Today's episode, I was hoping to share with our audience an insight to the future, the history of yourself and what you're doing. Many of the followers have been following your YouTube channel for some time, and they're sure that they've enjoyed the mystery. But as the time's gone on, you're now facing some new exciting events, such like your future of training and sharing people on how that they can start ciphering these exciting mysteries for us all.
Yes, it's exactly. I'm trying to put on like an online school together to help people understand the astrology of the 13 zodiacs that have reference to mythology and also to alchemic process with the Kabbalah tree. So there's really a whole relationship that's going on between astrology and the Kabbalah tree and understanding the secrets of unlocking it. It's really to understand how to get the sword out of the stone and all that. So it's pretty exciting because the numbers and are all like working out when I kind of figured out this way of looking at it. So I want to help people understand it, and then we can start to use that to, decode reality as we're living through it.
Yeah, a bit like the Matrix, but actually taking it all together, so it doesn't just give us a little clue; it paints the fuller picture. And
Yes.
I'm quite excited to see this training content come together and see the follower base that can excel. And one of the places that they could go would be your website, which is timewilltellastrology.com. Are you going to be publishing all your training content there, or are you going to have another way of presenting it to them? What's your thinking so far?
I think I'm going to put it on the website, and then there'll just be like links to YouTube videos, and we'll be in segments, so that, if people don't want to learn all of the segments all at once, they can just learn portions, and it'll be affordable that way, and then people can kind of, take their time in learning it, really focus on one aspect and just understand the wheels. It's like, because it's a language that most people don't understand.
Yes.
And it's something that I'm trying to put it in really like simple layman terms, because when you listen to astrologers, it's like you kind of just like, it's overwhelming. It can take a lifetime to learn everything about it, and it's really math. It's like a mathematical equation from the sequence of the orbits, right? And so then you start to realize there's math in the sky that repeats itself. Okay, so this is really what fascinates me, because when you start to see the repetitive patterns, you start to see that events in this realm correlate to these repetitive patterns. And it's not just like, simple astrology, like, Mercury's in Gemini. It's not simple astrology like this. It's astrology to understand the orbits and how they interrelate with other planets, and how the energies of these planets have created realities in this realm. And there seems to be a repetitive pattern, like, even with the stock market or other things, just disasters. There's a repetitive pattern that happens with the planets. So once you start to see it from that aspect, I don't even know if it's really called astrology at that point, because people just see astrology as, oh, well, this means that, this is my personality. It's so simplified to the point where it's not even interesting, I find. Like, the interesting part of astrology is seeing the repetitive patterns and watching it, and kind of going, well, that happened, when everything was like this last time on Earth, something like this happened, and you can start to see that it repeats. So it makes you realize that the script is the sky.
Yeah, the one that got me amazed, and one of the reasons I've enjoyed the podcast we shared, is the Kepler Trigon cyclical event. And
Yeah.
When we sit and play with the Trigon, in essence, it speaks about 6 cyclical points. And
yes,
it just blew me away.
Well, yeah, it's fascinating because if you look at the Trigon, how it moves through the sky, it's the Star of David.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the Star of David. So the Saturn Jupiter conjunctions make the sacred geometry.
Wow.
Okay, it's the same as Venus with the conjunctions with Earth. She makes the Venus rose. Is called the Rosabella, but if you go Google it, it's Venus rose. You'll see it. Okay, and it's a beautiful pattern. Almost looks, similar to the flower of life, but it ends up being the pentagram. Over 8 years conjunctions. It's like it ends up being the pentagram, and this is why it's on the U.S. flag, and this is really interesting how they're using the planet orbits to create the sacred geometry. Okay, so the sacred geometry is all referencing to the sky. This is another thing that people don't understand. I have all the patterns of, well, not all of them, but I have collected quite a few, like, say Mars and Jupiter pattern. And it comes out to be a spiral graph. It's like they all have their own shapes when they interact with each other, and it's beautiful. It's like a dance, right? And so then you start to see, you start to get the image in your head. Oh, Earth and Venus makes this pattern. Mars and Jupiter makes this pattern. And all this stuff helps awaken and expand the mind. And so the interesting thing about, once you understand, like, okay, Venus and Earth, well, Taurus is an Earth sign ruled by Venus, right? So that is the Silver Gate. It's also the Golden Gate of the Ecliptic. It's also where the Pleiades are, the Seven Sisters. They rule everything, and most ancient cultures worship the Pleiades, and they're on the shoulder of Taurus. And, another interesting point, Trump is born in the Silver Gate on the Crab Nebula, this first supernova that was ever recorded. That's where his sun was when he was born. Everybody thinks he's a Gemini. No, he's the bull. He's the bull. Okay. So he's the Taurus. And Taurus is so important because it is Earth and it is Venus. Okay. And Venus is like the mother, because the fascinating thing about Venus is she has like 9 months, then she goes in front of the sun and behind the sun, and then she goes another 9 months and again connects with the sun. So she has a gestation period as a woman. That's why she's the planet. So everything is related. So once you start to see how this language works, you don't see it like, oh, that's Taurus. Oh, Taurus people are like this. You start to see it. Oh, it's the alchemic symbol of what element is it? What rules Taurus? And you start to understand there's a language there that you can use to decipher.
The thought that was coming to my mind, like a dance in the heavens.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a beautiful dance. Like if you watch, if you go on Stellarium, you watch Venus and Mercury, because they're the two fast-moving planets, and they move with the sun. So the sun's going along. Of course, the sun never goes retrograde, but the Venus and Mercury do. So they go along, and then Mercury will jump behind the sun, and then they'll go along for a bit, and then Mercury will get in front of the sun, and then Venus will jump behind the sun, and it's so beautiful to watch. And then you start. I mapped out every single one where they conjunct from the founding of the United States. It took me days. I mapped them out, and I wanted to see if there was a pattern where they conjunct. And there is. There's a pattern. There's a recycle pattern always happening where they're conjuncting. So then you start to realize, oh, that's an important day. That's an important day because that's where Venus and Mercury do a lot of conjunction on that day. So 9/11 pops up a lot. Okay, 9/11. It's a very important number, 9/11. It's not just the Twin Towers going down. This is a very, very, very sacred number. And I think
going back
part of
many,
it, back, and it's really to do with the calendar and how the planets. Sometimes I wonder, because the calendars got changed so much, and they stopped. Well, the first problem with the calendar is they got rid of the lunar calendar. This is a huge problem because we're only following the sun cycle. Because they disconnected us from the moon, we're disconnected from our memory. our ancestral memory, because the moon pulls on the tides of the ocean, and the moon is really about memory, because water is where memory is held. Right? They've done this, the science, water holds memory. So, and because we're mostly water, us as beings, our memory is related to the moon. So we don't know any of our history. We don't know any of our, like just connecting ancient memories through our, just from dreaming and connecting with this stuff, is because we don't know the moon cycle. We don't pay attention to them anymore. We just ignore them. And just the ignorance of ignoring half of the sky and what it represents totally puts us off kilter. It just puts us in the logical mind of the left brain. If you think the sun rules your left brain, it's male dominant. This is what all our education is taught, to just think from the left brain. So people that think from the right brain, intuition, I don't know, just having imagination, all that side is all like woo woo. It's not, but it's not woo woo. It's the other half of your brain. So it's like if you only function on one side of your brain, there's no way you can connect to anything that you're supposed to be learning spiritually. So it's really important that you understand the two cycles. It's really the moon. You have to understand the moon.
It's like having half of the story, or only having half of the tools to read half of the story.
Exactly. Even though our calendar is all represents the sun, it's still important to know where the moon is, what cycle it's in. This is the triple goddess. The triple goddess in ancient times, way before Christianity, was the 3 cycles. Well, they don't use all the cycles of the moon. They use the waxing, the waning, and the full moon. So it's like this with the moon in the middle. That's the triple goddess symbol. And this is really the Trinity. This is the true Trinity, is the moon.
Yeah, it reminds me on the Wayne Herschel stuff, when you're speaking about the 3 goddess, some of the ancient stuff that he was speaking about, which was truly...
In 1939, there was this really rare Venus transit where Venus was going in front of the sun. Okay. Now, I think Kepler had predicted it, but he had mistaken the prediction, because they were measuring, right? They didn't have computers back then, so they would have to measure and calculate the mathematical equations of how the orbits work. And the weird thing about orbits, it's in the sky. You can't say, oh, well, at one part of the year, it's going to take exactly, like say with Mercury, 88 years to get it back to that part of the sky again. It will sometimes come back, but sometimes it won't. It won't get back to that calendar marking again. Okay, because the sky is kind of like it's like a sea. It's moving. It's not stable. Okay, so even when you calculate orbits, there's always this prediction, like it's the precession of the zodiac as well, but it kind of shifts. Okay, so that's why it's so difficult to predict when they didn't have the computer, right? When they were trying to measure and stuff. So anyhow,
weird.
Yeah.
Machine, amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Rittenhouse was the guy that created this clock with these big brass planets on, and they were calculating for Benjamin Franklin at the beginning of the United States, when the founding of the United States was happening. That was their guy, and he wasn't an institutionally educated person. He was just a genius in himself, and so he saw things in a different way. He wasn't just using his left side of his brain. Okay, he was using his right side. So anyhow, this whole thing about the Venus transit is really fascinating, because Crabtree, there was a guy named Crabtree, another guy, I can't remember his name, it starts with H. They all saw this Venus transit conjunction from England. It was in Manchester. Okay. And as soon as they saw it, they tried to tell the authorities about it. And instantly, all of them got killed off. All 3 guys. One guy was 22. And then a year or 2 later, the other guy. And all their papers about this Venus transit disappeared.
Wow.
Nobody could find it. Okay. So eventually it got resurrected, and they started to realize the importance of it. The astronomers and the Royal Society decided to value them, and they made plaques to them. Okay, but the fascinating thing is, when I went into Stellarium to check it out, the way they were measuring Venus transit being in front of the sun, they had specifically said it happened on November 24th. In 1639. So I went and checked it out in the sky, and Jupiter's there. There's a sun, a moon sun eclipse, and Venus is there. So I don't know if they needed the eclipse to see it. Like, I'm not sure what they were looking for. Okay. But exactly 10 days later, on December 4th, Venus was in conjunction with the sun. Okay. So I don't know if they telling us a different date. The reason why on December 4th, exactly 1639 months later, they created the founding of the United States. Okay, so it happened in 1639, but exactly 1639 months later, from when Venus was in conjunction with the sun, 10 days after the supposed event, is when they found the United States. It's very relevant because of the 639.
Yes.
Okay, this is why this year and the Venus transit, that was, this, it's all part of it. Okay, so that's how Venus pentagram gets connected to the United States. Okay, and you got to remember, Venus is Ishtar. Okay, so the Egyptian mythology, the goddess, or Isis or whatever, they're all part of Venus. All women goddess are Venus. Okay, so it's like really worshiping the woman or the mother. So I just find it fascinating, because the whole thing of Mother's Day as well was all correlated to Venus. They had saw in the future, 33 years in the future. I think they created the first Mother's Day was in 1908. 33 years in the future, there's this massive Venus conjunction, all in Taurus, all in the Pleiades. So they knew the future and created the Mother's Day, in real time, where they knew the future that was going to have this conjunction. So that's 33 years later. Okay, so they're using the Freemason number. Okay, so everything that we worship is all worship to the sky. And this is what you have to understand.
Start and then ask you a couple of questions. There's a couple of thoughts that comes to my mind, and you might enjoy this one. The Venus, saying that it's a woman consciousness is quite interesting. There's a movie that was made because there was a mum in a state that said she was an alien and came from Venus. And the movie's titled My Mum is an Alien.
Oh.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And not only that, Tesla even said he was in connection with people from Venus. And then another one is the Maria Orsovich. Remember the Nazi thing? There was that Ver something society. She said she was from Venus as well.
Yeah.
It's
well,
really,
all
really
from Venus. Yeah. I think they're all referencing the Pleiades. The Pleiades is the seraphim. It's the seven sisters. And what's interesting about that is when I went back to the Maturin, is that how you pronounce it? In China, their globe, they have this big astrology globe, and this on the Corona Borealis, which is supposed to be the crown, it's shaped like a moon, and it's a necklace, and its reference is the seven sisters.
Wow, that's interesting.
So Corona, so Corona Borealis is your crown. You don't want the Corona Australis, which is the laurel wreath that the UN uses. You don't want that one. You want the northern one, which goes with the Aurora Borealis. It's called Corona Borealis. Borealis basically means north wind. Okay, so you want the northern crown. King of the North. King of the North is King Arthur. Okay, so this is Boots. constellation, the Arcturus star, is King Arthur. This is the one that goes over the White House. Okay, so King Arthur is the White House. Spica star in Virgo is the obelisk, Washington Monument. Capitol building is Regulus, is alchemy. It's the Regulus star in Leo is the king. It's also the king, but it's the king of alchemy. Of Venus, Mercury is really alchemy. It's the hermaphrodite. Okay, so the Regulus star. So they did a beautiful portrait to Crabtree, who discovered this Venus transit, and I guess they used his telescope, and he had it like reflecting in his house, like the sun,
Wow.
and they showed the black dot of Venus going in front of it. Anyhow, it's a very important conjunction, but I just think it all ties into the United States, and it's just a shame that they don't tell us,
Yes.
because it's fascinating. It's like, wow, this is what, this big discovery, it's all part of astronomy, and then it's all relating to the symbols that the United States are using, and people, I think, would have more interest in it
Yeah, definitely.
if they
I
knew the
mean,
mysteries
the
behind it
dance
all.
in the heavens, that's interesting enough, let alone finding out that they've actually sewn a piece to the United
Yeah.
States. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think it's really fascinating. And I think I did a graph, right? On one of my videos, I showed like Washington, D.C., the St. Louis Silver Gate, which is like this in St. Louis. Meet Me in St. Louis, right? The old movie with Judy Garland. And then the Golden Gate. They're all on the same parallel line. And then straight up angle is to the Lions Gate in Vancouver. Now, if you take all this and you actually draw up to, there's an island called Leopold Island up in Nunavut, north of Canada, which is named to Leopold, which is Queen Victoria's son, I believe, not grandson. I think it was her son, and he was a huge Freemason. Okay, huge. Okay, and he came over to Canada. And I think they actually came over to watch the Lionsgate Bridge get opened in Vancouver. And this island, it's like a crown up in Nunavut, and it's called the Bird Sanctuary Island. It's just an island that's like straight up walls like this, and it's a big, huge, round circle. So what I saw when I looked at this, I was like, oh my God, it's the Venus, it's the pentagram right across North America. And what's fascinating is if you take it from St. Louis, which is where the two eclipses are going across, right? The one in 2017, they cross in St. Louis. If you take this cross and make that part of the pentagram, it ends up being a phi line in the upside down triangle. There's a triangle in the part of the pentagram. Okay, you can make a V. Okay, in it. Okay, that's pi from St. Louis to this legislature building in Winnipeg. It's the exact pi line. And that's a massive Freemason building, right? And they have the worship to the star that you look down the well. It's like the well of the Holy Holies. Okay.
And there's
you
no
look
such thing as a
down
coincidence. Everything has a reason.
No, and what's fascinating about that building is that they have a golden boy with wings. And he's up on this building, and it was a big, huge drama of getting this statue there. Like it was like lost in a ship, and they couldn't get it. And yeah, they finally get this golden boy to go on this big, giant building. And you know what? He's looking to the north. They
The
have
King
him
of the North.
facing north.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the North Pole, to the King of the North, whatever you want to. It's all symbolism, but it's so beautiful, and I just want everybody to know this, because it's like they built the monuments to the sky.
Yeah.
Okay, St. Louis is the Silver Gate. That's your third eye. That when you run your chakras up your body, Venus is here behind your lateral ventricles in your body. That's your third eye. Okay, so we are the planets. The planets are in us.
They
So
do
it's
say
like,
that we're star seeds or star dust.
yeah, but it's like nobody knows this stuff, and it's like we're representing the sky, and then the monuments represent the sky, and the script is the sky. So our reality is just recycling the sky all the time, and it's like it's just it's I think it's all magical. It's like and of course the ancient festivals, like for instance, Odin's Day, Odin's Wild Hunt Day, is all worshiping the Tree of Life. Okay, because he was like the real Santa Claus, and the whole thing of Santa Claus all ties into the Tree of Life, which was Sigillaria Day, December 23rd, the last day of Saturnalia, which was the original pagan holiday, over Christmas. And this all ties into why Odin showed up and went to the Capitol building. He was in the Capitol building. This is Ascension building. Go look at the painting in the top. It's George Washington going through the portal. And they have all the planets in there. They have, they have these planets. They have Circe, they have Neptune, they have Mercury. They're all in there.
And
Why are they all up in the painting?
yeah, and there was
If,
footage of people just getting let in. It wasn't
yes.
they barged through. It was just
No, it was a
yeah.
ritual to Odin, okay? Because Odin divides the souls. He divides the consciousness. He decides who gets to go to be immortal to Valhalla and who doesn't. Okay? And they did it, Trump, when he created the wild protest on Odin's Wild Hunt Day, which was always January 6th. Okay, go research it. You'll find out that Odin's Wild Hunt Day was always January 6th, and that he put them in the ellipse. Okay, the ellipse is Kepler's first law of how to make an orbit from a circle to an oval. This is where it's really funny. You take two thumbtacks with a string, you pull it to make the circle oval, and guess what that's called? Flattening the curve.
Synchronicity.
It's like, oh my God, people. It's like, I knew Odin was going to show up. I knew it. I did a video of it before it happened. I said it was Odin's Wild Hunt Day. How did I know that? I know the sky. So this is why I want to help teach people how to kind of understand the festivals are all worshiping the sky. And then you start to see that things are happening on these festival days. So then you start to understand, hey, that's a worship to the sky, especially if the sky is aligning to the festival. Like, you have the right players in the right spots in the sky. For sure something's going to happen. You just know it because it's like, okay, it's all so perfect. It's all so divine, right? So that's it. The other thing that I discovered was, I always knew that Mnemosyne is the river that you regain your memory. So it would be the bottom of the Tree of Life. And the Leth River is where you lose your memory. Okay, which is where you'd be on the top of the Tree of Life. It's like you're the hangman. So what's interesting, I was looking into Mnemosyne and what she represents. She has a huge part in all this. They did, there was cultures worshiping her called the Asclepian temple. The Asclepian temple was where people would go and retrieve their dreams. Okay, they would do dream worshiping to Mnemosyne, and they would lie and they would have this kind of lucid dream, and they would heal their bodies, but they were worshiping Mnemosyne. But guess what? Mnemosyne, the other name for her in Roman times, they created it to be moneta. Okay, moneta is how they use money. Money is named after moneta. So money represents Mnemosyne. She's the mother of the 9 muses. Okay, so there's a Confederate bill in the United States where they have Mnemosyne or moneta on the dollar. or I think a $50 bill. Okay, so they're using this mythology. Okay, so now I'm starting to understand that money means memory. Okay, so it's the currency. It's the electrical currency, because that's how memory is in the ley lines through the planet. There's ancestral ley lines where there's memories of DNA. Okay, and this is what Dan Winters talks about. He says, most of the abductees, on the planet, are people that could lucid dream because their DNA, most of them were Native Americans. There was a lot of people that abducted and stuff. Yeah, so the money is currency. Now, this is an electrical currency that runs through the planet. And this Dan Winters talks about this. He talks about people that have been abducted tend to be the lucid dreamers. Okay. Now, the lucid dreamers are the ones that have they're still living on their ancestral land. Okay, so your DNA connects to where your ancestors live. That you have more ability to lucid dream because of the coherence in your aura. Okay, connects more to your ancestors, and there's like places on the earth where it's easier to lucid dream. Like if you go to Prague, because the fractal of the whole city is made like a rose, like they built it all the streets, and this is called fractality, and fractality gives you a more ability to lucid dream. Like if you create your bedroom to be like a rose, if you created it, you would have more lucid dreaming. Okay, because it's the shapes that create, I guess, the vortex energies of the ether. You know what I mean? Like you can heal things. We know we can heal things in pyramids, but the rose is super important because the rose is really your DNA top down. They never show that view, right? They never show that view of the DNA. It's the rose because it's spiraling like this, and there's all these lattice. It ends up being the pentagon. It's a pentagon that ends up being a rose. If you take a pentagon, this is why Venus is so important. If you take a pentagon and turn it and turn it and turn it and draw it 5 times, it looks like a rose. Okay, so our DNA looks like a rose. So this is why you have the Rosicrucians. They're worshiping DNA. That's really what it is. They're worshiping Venus, but it all ties into DNA. Okay, tribe of Dan. Okay, so
is the Georgian stones. When you take that shape that they're placed, because they've shaped them not in the like cross, but they're apart. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4, but then a one on top.
Yeah,
which
it's an X as well, right?
Yes, yeah. The X steganography.
Yeah, so this is what most people don't understand. The X is the middle of the pentagram. So in esoteric knowledge, when you want to do a symbol for Venus, you go like this. So I think wasn't there mummies? They're buried like this too, like with their arms like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a worship to Venus. So it's interesting, and the fact that we're getting this big giant X coming across North America. Of course, everything is built around this time. Oh, okay. So Capitol Hill was originally 7 hills in Rome. Okay, now the 7 hills represent the Pleiades, the 7 sisters again, and this is called the Capitoline Hill, and it's a worship to Juno, Jupiter, and Minerva. Okay, so these are all important players to know. Minerva actually is across the river from the Statue of Liberty, and she stares at the Statue of Liberty. There's a big statue there in a cemetery. Okay. She represents Athena. Athena, tying back to Greek, which is why Athens is named Athens, is after Athena. Okay, because she brought the tree, the olive tree. That was why the city was named after her. She represents the tree of life again. It's always, all the mythology always goes back to the tree of life, the tree of life, the tree of life. So Washington, D.C. originally was called Rome. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Okay. And so the Roman Empire never fell. Okay. It just changed over to the United States. But I think now is when it's going to fall. It's going to separate. I think they're going to create like a duality, two basic consciousnesses or two pillars. They're going to get people on the pillars. You're either left or you're right. And I do think, there's talk about Trump coming back or the military backing Trump and saying that the election was illegal, and they're going to create this duality, which they're not saying it's a civil war. They're saying, oh, it's a revolution. But, of course, the left is going to see it as a civil war. Okay, so this, I think, is all part of it, to get people even more on the pillars and to see who can see that it's still all an illusion. Okay, because it's like only the initiate that can see that it's all following a script. It's a movie that is just repeating ancient history. And, you got to remember, the fall of Rome supposedly was after they killed Julius Caesar. Okay, and this was all to do with Savelle's pearl. Julius Caesar gave his mistress this pearl, and her son didn't like it, Marcus Brutus, and he ended up making a plot to kill Julius Caesar, and they killed him. But, they stabbed him 23 times. Well, this is number 5 again. This is DNA again. Okay? So, so what is real and what's not real? I'm not saying it's all real. What I'm saying is it's repetitive. It's the same story. Okay? So what we would need to see is Julius Caesar getting killed, and this all ties in again. It's just repetitive mythology. Adonis, he's the resurrected god, the Lord. Okay, all through different mythologies, it's always the resurrected king, and he takes with him the souls that see the illusion, and when he resurrects, he's alive again. Okay, so I'm not saying, Trump's the god, or I'm not saying all this. I'm saying that they're creating the same mythology. Okay,
they're now, the actors in the role. Yes,
they're the actors in the roles, exactly. So there's what I'm kind of trying to figure out is they're going to take Trump out. Okay, and when that happens, 3 days or so later would be a big, huge spiritual event on this planet for those that can absorb it, like most likely from the sun. It would be a gamma ray coming from the sun, because this is what all ancient mythology said: the sun rebirths you. Okay, so this is what I'm kind of like trying to predict, or trying to foresee when an event like this would happen, and how it would all tie into mythology, and how it all ties into the sky. And I do believe I figured out a really important date. It's in the fall, and I have to do a video on that. It all ties into the numbers. No. Yeah. So no, but it's all crazy. But so anyhow, this is really what it all ties to, and it does all tie to the Kabbalah tree and the tree of life. It does. Okay, so all the numbers that they're using and everything. So yeah, it's just fascinating. I'm blown away by it all.
Yeah, me too. And a couple of synchronicities that was coming to me. Some of the things I've got in my book references a deep state of consciousness. And one of the things I think that Trump and those in the esoteric aspects were playing was to actually get people in or out of a deep state. And
yes,
that was one of the reasons why I focused my book. And I've got a full chapter on a deep state of consciousness and the implications. And then the other thing which I thought was interesting, and as I say, I might not put this into our video, but I'm recording it. But the other thing I found interesting is you spoke of the pillars, trying to hang people on the pillars. Well, Rudolf Steiner, in his works, he spoke of Luciferian consciousness versus Armanian or Armin consciousness. One being the technocrat and one being the, shall we say, lucid dreamers.
Yeah.
How interesting is this?
Yeah.
And not
Yeah,
only that,
I don't see Lucifer as bad.
no,
Actually,
no, none of
I
it
know
is.
that's a
None
lot
of
of
it is. It's
people.
all the Brahma. And
Yeah, he's the
the
morning star.
well, Lucifer, when he had his army, he did some interesting things, but that's another part of the
Yeah,
drama.
they're all bad in a way. They all, but as long as it's like Trump, he's still like you know uh, working for the finance for the money
Yes.
and everything. But the point is, he is dropping a little bit of esoteric knowledge.
Yeah.
So the fact that he got in there and stirred everything up, it awakened consciousness. It awakened me. I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I started to, do all this big deep diving into it.
And
Oh, wait,
one of the
gone again.
other interesting thoughts that I had, and I made a note, and as I say, I might not put this part
So
in, but we're
frustrating.
talking about some really good stuff. Oh no, are we still connected? We're not.
Cutting in and out. Cutting in and out.